or some type of drastic conflict. So China, like I said, the people that run China at the upper echelon of that place, they're Jews. The British intelligence found that out during the British East India Company's occupation of China during the Opium Wars. China took over Tibet because Tibet, in back of Tibet, is a passageway into the inner earth, into a lot of the hidden cities and towards the core where there's an actual another sun inside of the planet that they're trying to get into. So the British government wanted to go in and do that, but it was too far away. So what the British government did in 1914 was set up what we today now call the Middle East through a guy named T.E. Lawrence. They made a movie about with, what's his name, named Lawrence of Arabia. Mm-hmm. He's the one who created the term Arab. He's the one who cut up the Middle East the way that it looks today. And they would use the Middle East now as a beachhead to go further through Afghanistan, behind China, into Tibet. It didn't work. You know what I'm saying? And they wound up having to call the Americans to help them. The Americans figured out what was going on, and then they said, oh, well, they're really Jewish. Let's try to find a way to work with them. Mm-hmm. So the United States, who is a puppet of Israel, the state, Israel then started making backroom deals with China to get in there and basically try to get into them underground cities and stuff. Because again, remember I tell you, trying to find somewhere to go.
Right.
So this is why you can have groups like the Beastie Boys, Jewish people, talking about free Tibet, because the Dalai Lama's a Jew. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
They're all Jewish people, but they make it seem like, you know, he's this Buddhist, devout Buddhist. Yeah, he is, but he's also Illuminati Jew too. So China now, what they are starting to do, they are now starting to try to invade Africa through the Sudan. They're the ones backing the Sudanese government, and they're the ones trying to back the dark Arabs in there to get rid of the dark Africans, so that way the Chinese can have somewhere to go, because they know the judgment is about to hit them. That's why they went through all of the stuff with the earthquakes and everything else. Another thing about China right now, there's only the population, only 20% of the Chinese population is Chinese. Everybody else is dark-skinned Muslims.
Wow.
And they hide them. Like today, if you was to marry a Chinese man, or I was to marry a Chinese woman, I could not live in central China, Beijing or something. They would put me into the province where there's other black people there, and then you would never see them on TV. But the majority of people in China are black. Also, they have red, black, and green pyramids that we built in China from the Qiang dynasty over 10,000 years ago, that the Chinese government act like have failed to acknowledge. So they're there. The third largest pyramid in the world, they're right there, but they don't acknowledge them. They say they don't exist. And they're red, black, and green. So the other part of it, too, is that China has now instituted a scorched earth policy against its own people. So recently in the news, you heard about 60,000 children died because the Chinese government was giving them bad formula. Because the Chinese people are now trying to be more white than the white man. And because they're prepping for the invasion, they're trying to get rid of what they call the laggards in their society first. They knew about the bad infamil before the Olympics, but they waited till after the Olympics to tell anybody, because they didn't want anybody from the international community to come and look bad on them. Because, again, they want to be white people. The biggest killer in Africa, China, and India right now is bleaching cream.
Oh, wow.
That is the number one killer, more than the earthquakes, more than the population control, more than the murders and the rapes and the organ harvesting that China deal with. Bleaching cream, because they all trying to be white.
Right.
So the white man know he's trying to be black. See what I'm saying? And black people is trying to be white and anything else. So this is what I mean about them. So the whole Georgia thing, if you notice, the same day they popped the Olympics off, Russia invaded Georgia.
Right.
That was because the United States, because China has a non-aggression pact with Russia, meaning that they work together in tandem. So China will support Russia covertly because China is communist. People forget that Chinese people are communists.
Mm-hmm.
They act like they just, regular people. No, they're a communist totalitarian society. Chinese people don't tell American people what goes on in their society like that. Chinese people don't tell people that if you get locked up, the whether they sentence you or not, they can detain you, torture you, and then if you die, they have a bus, a truck called the organ truck that will take your organs out on the way to the airport. So that way, right when you get to the airport, your organs are basically still fresh, and they can put it on a plane and ship it to Hollywood so, Shirley MacLaine or somebody can get new lips or something. This is what they do to their own people. So imagine what they'll try to do to black people over here. Wow. But it ain't going to work. And they've been prepping black people for this for years through movies like Rush Hour, through movies, through all of the Kung Fu movies and all of that. See what I'm saying? Through people like, again, Gwen Stefani. She made a song called Harajuku Girls where she's making Japanese and Chinese people look like little dolls and stuff. Like, this is to engender the consciousness that it's okay for Chinese people to rule over you. But it's not going to work. Same thing with Russia. When they invaded Georgia, that was an attack against the United States. Because the United States, during the Clinton era, went in there through Bosnia and Herzegovina and tried to carve out a region for itself as a means to have a first strike capability against Russia. So Putin, who was trying to vie for the role of the Antichrist in the Illuminati thing, decides he's going to go against it. Putin is related to Al Gore. Al Gore and Putin are related to the Romanov family. The Romanovs were Tsar Nichols and them, who they killed right before they set up the Russian Revolution with Stalin and Lenin. See what I'm saying?
Right.
But what they don't tell you is you could get a book called The Moor of St. Petersburg, and it's about a Moor named Hannibal, mispronounced Hannibal, but his real name was Hannibal, who was a Moor from Ethiopia who went to Russia and basically wound up ruling Russia. This guy Hannibal, the Moor, is the father of Alexander Pushkin, who is the black man that created the language that Russians speak today. See what I'm saying?
Wow,
so that means we was ruling Russia too. This is why Russia has a red flag, because the flag of the Moors or the flag of the original black people was the red flag. It was the red flag and the black flag, We had both. So what you're watching now with Putin is him trying to exert himself as an antichrist and force Europe into a union in which now he goes against the United States. But now what he's doing is he's allying himself with everybody else that is against the United States. So he's got a non-aggression pact with Syria now. He's got a non-aggression pact with Iran now. He's doing maneuvers now in Venezuela with Chavez. See what I'm saying? And again, this is the same white man. But the difference between the Russians and the United States and the Americans is the Caucasian, the Illuminati of the United States are more sadistic to the point of total annihilation. The Russians are just as sadistic and are into just as much annihilation, but they're more outright with it. See what I'm saying?
Okay.
So you're dealing with the same beast. That's why Russia has the red, white, and blue flag now too.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, they do what they're supposed to do. But again, all of this planning, the best laid plans of mice and men. As much as they're doing all of this, and as much as all that, if a person like me in Brooklyn, you know what I'm saying, who grew up in the hood, who come from these people or whatever, can figure all of this out, then that means that the millions of dollars that they're doing is wasted because, you know what I mean? That goes to show you how over their society is.
Right.
To the point where the CIA, real quick, is advertising on TV now. Where, like, you can join this. Yeah, the CIA. They say, come join the CIA. They advertising on the TV now. It's over.
Mhm.
It's over.